Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, and I'm an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book, Outdoor Minimalist, Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. Follow the link in the description to pre-order a copy of the book so you'll be the first to receive it on the release date of September 1st, 2022. The Outdoor Minimalist podcast has a goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of the process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. In episode 36 of the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, we discuss how you can start building outdoor time into your daily life, and how spending more time outdoors is not only good for you, but it could be good for the planet too. So to help me do that, I had the pleasure of hosting Amy Bushatz. Amy is the host of the Humans Outside podcast, a project inspired by her ongoing personal experiment to test what happens if you spend a certain amount of time outside every single day. With more than 1,600 days of the habit logged and counting, Amy shares her experiences and connects listeners with inspiring outdoor-minded guests from her home in Palmer, Alaska. Amy and her husband Luke are joined on their outdoor adventures by their 2 sons and 2 dogs. Supercharge your pup's mealtime with Neobites functional dog food toppers. Neobites unlocks the unique power of cricket protein to promote firm poops, a thick and shiny coat, and everyday vitality for your dog. With a powder format, these toppers can easily be mixed into existing foods to make mealtime more exciting. Cricket, a hypoallergenic and humane protein, is not only better for your dog, but it's better for the planet too. Producing virtually no greenhouse gases and using fractions of the resources used for traditional proteins. Check out Neobites products on Amazon or at eatneobites.com. Use the discount code CRICKET15 for 15% off your first order. And if you and your dog love it, use the code Outdoor Minimalist for 10% off every order. Thank you for joining me today, Amy. I'm really glad that you're here, and I know that you will have a lot of value to share with the audience. But before we get to that, can you talk a little more about your involvement in the outdoor industry and how outdoor recreation fits into your life today?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love coming on podcasts talking about this stuff. So I really appreciate you having me today. So my involvement in the outdoor industry and the outdoors in general really started with me wanting to go outside for me. I had been married to my husband for, about 8 years. And we were really going through some marriage stuff, some challenges that were the result of his military service. So he had been in the Army and he had sustained some injuries overseas, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, sort of the things we all hear about. And I realized that he seemed like a more relaxed person when he spent time outside, but not an outdoors person. I was like, I see that you have no flushing toilet. I will be in the house. Thank you very much. And I just really wasn't into it. And so I noticed that he was really a different person outside. And I really wanted to be with him when he was a different person. And so I thought, okay, what we're going to do is we're all going to learn to go outside together. And so I started getting into camping, taking my small children camping. And at the time we lived in Tennessee, and watching him pitch a tent was like watching somebody take off a backpack of problems. By the time, and it was a giant tent, so it took a second, but by the time he pitched the whole tent, it was just this huge sigh of relief. And I wanted that for myself too, because like everyone else in the world, we're all under stress. So the more we went outside, the more we realized that that was true. And at some point, it became apparent that we really needed to make this a part of our lives all the time, just switch how we were focusing and how we were spending time outside. And so we made the decision to get out of the active duty Army, which meant that we could move away from Tennessee, a place that we were not from, though it was beautiful, and pick where we wanted to live. And so I've got a flair for the dramatic. I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, I like the drama. And so I thought, hey, let's move sight unseen to Alaska. why not? I'd never been here before. I'm talking to you today from Palmer, Alaska, which is near Anchorage. And I'm from a beach in California. So why I would think moving to the Arctic is a great idea. But here we are. So I decided pack up the family, move up here. Okay, so fast forward, we living up here in Alaska. Life is good. My husband is getting outside. He is living the dream. And I am waiting for Alaska to be awesome. And by awesome, I mean nice weather and how I want it to be. Alaska is always awesome, by the way. It's just not going to fit in your box, just like anywhere else. And so I decided to start a challenge for myself, just for me, What would happen to my attitude about this, to my attitude about my life, to my actual life, to my health and happiness, to all of those things, if I went outside for just 20 minutes in a row, every single day, just for a year? That started on September 1st, 2017. It's now been over 1,600 days in a row that I've gone outside for just at least 20 minutes in a row. And obviously, I did not stop after a year because I found the benefits to my life were just endless. It was making my relationships better. It was making me better at tackling challenges. It was making me better at my job. It was making me happier, healthier. All those things we always hear, they were all true. And I didn't want to stop. I wanted more of it. I also started to wonder what there was for other people to learn from this. Now, I said I'm a storyteller and I got a flair. Well, storytellers and reporters, we got to report. It's just who we are. So I started to share what I was doing through my website, humansoutside.com, and through a podcast that I started. But initially, like I said, it was all for me, just for me. I was posting a picture of my outdoor time on Instagram every day from day one as a way for me to create accountability for doing that outside time for me. And it just sort of took off from there.
That's awesome. What a Genesis story. So when did your podcast start then?
Yeah, so I started the podcast, about 2 years ago in February of 2020. Isn't it funny how many things started in February of 2020?
Yes, a lot of things, life-changing things started in that time period.
And it's always the story of the things that started right before all the other things that started, right? Mm-hmm. So that's me too. I had recorded all these episodes and I pressed the button on February 6th, 2020, and then the whole world changed. So I had my little pandemic project without even knowing that that's what I was doing. And then, since then I've started the Humans Outside Challenge, which are challenge kits that I created to help people who want to take this on as well, but may not feel like they're equipped to do that or like they know how to get outside every day. That can be really daunting for somebody who that's not their lifestyle. And so the Humans Outside Challenge kits are aimed at really very simply just helping motivate and inform.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming you can just find that on your website.
Yep, absolutely. Humansoutside.com right there, and all the information about the challenge kits, if that is something that you need. And if it's not, no worries. And the podcast is there too.
So the podcast started as this kind of like a personal wanting to tell your story, hoping it would maybe impact other people. But what would you say the mission of Humans Outside is now?
Yeah, so it's funny because when I first had this idea, it was, I got to help myself, an indoor person, become an outdoor person. But I would say the mission now is really just creating learning and assistance for people and inspiration for people who want to make going outside part of their lifestyle, for people who want to make a daily outdoor habit just a part of who they are.
Okay, and we've talked about habits before and how challenging that can be, especially like you're saying, if you're going from not having that a part of your life at all, and then kind of putting yourself out there and trying to integrate these new things. So what do you think were the most successful things in helping you reach that goal of getting out 20 minutes every day? Because I'm guessing there were some days that were probably cold, probably rainy, probably more than you want to say are true in Alaska. So how did you really stick to doing that every day?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that when all is rosy, when the weather is good, when the sun is shining, getting outside every day sounds like a super good idea and really easy. My friends and I like to run. We joke that all of the races that we plan or sign up for, all of those decisions are made on a sunny day. Because no one sits in their house in January and is like, I think I'll run a race in sub-zero temperatures. Why would you do that? No, you sign up on a sunny day in September when you think, oh man, that sounds like a really good idea. Okay, so first of all, that is absolutely true, right? That everything's easy when the sun is shining and the weather is nice. But that's not how a habit works, right? The point of it being a habit is that you have to push through something hard, because if it was easy the whole time, you wouldn't have to work for it. So for me, there are three steps for making a habit work. Okay. First is I set a goal that I would actually do. There is a reason I made that 20 minutes, consecutive minutes every day, because I knew that I would never make time for 45. Never. I would make time for 20 though. 20 sounds like a reasonable amount of time. And when I looked at my life and my schedule, I knew that I was burning 20 minutes scrolling through Facebook every evening mindlessly, just like probably most people do. So I thought, you know what? I can take that time, use it to go outside. I can scrape that together. That's fine. So I picked a goal that I would actually do, something attainable. And then I started doing it by using intrinsic rewards to make it happen. So going outside, there's a reason we all like to do it. It makes us feel good. So when you do something that has that, it's like a carrot on a stick at the end, that you know at the end of this, you will be glad you did it. And you experience that reward several times. So let's say the first day of your habit, the second day of your habit, the third day of your habit, sunny outside, right? Very pleasant day. You're thinking, oh, I could do this forever. Your brain is saying, and this feels great. And this was really fun. And we feel really good now. We're looking forward to tomorrow. We like this habit. So now let's say day 4, day 5, not so nice. Very windy, terrible weather, whatever. Your brain says, okay, this not good. But remember the last time we did this? We felt really good at the end. It was sunny and warm and that was good. We just felt great because we went outside. So now you have the perseverance because you had that reward before to push through a little bit and find that reward at the end of the harder time. The more you do that, the more you know that reward is there. So now, yes, oh my goodness, yes, there are so often days that I do not want to go outside. Some of them were this week. But I know, one, it's been more than 1,600 days. I cannot break the habit now. That's ridiculous. 2, I know that it's going to have a reward at the end because I've experienced the reward before. So finally, the third thing to creating this habit is to find the time to keep doing it. And one of the ways is just good time management by getting rid of stuff you don't need to be doing. So this is not quite the minimalism you talk about on this podcast, but I'm going to use the word anyway. Minimalizing stuff you're doing to make time for the things you find more important.
Yeah, so then you can kind of replace maybe something that's not adding as much of that value that you're talking about with something like this.
Exactly.
So maybe less time on social media.
Precisely. So, I mean, do I spend 20 minutes a day scrolling Facebook in 1 minute or 30-second increments? Well, I know I do because Apple comes with this stupid screen time feature now that tells you at the end of the week how much time you wasted on your phone.
Yeah.
It's annoying / beneficial.
Yes.
So if you looked at that in the aggregate, thought about how much of that each day, and then simply didn't do that, but went outside instead, what would you find? That's the question.
And I'm sure that it is different for everyone.
Absolutely.
But there's general benefits. And I'm sure it kind of changes and evolves along this journey that you're taking. What have you discovered or learned about yourself since building that habit and starting this daily 20 minutes or probably more some days? And if you could give like a snackable impact, what would you say that is?
Yeah. So, there are obviously, like you said, endless highlights. When I say it changed my life in every way, it really did, because it changed how I think about things. And that is the first takeaway I want to give people today, that so much of this is the discovery for me, is my discovery of mind over matter. So spending time in nature, it's really remarkable because it both gives you the place to find out that you can do whatever you're setting out to do, and it creates endless opportunities for doing so. So think about going out to hike a trail. Okay. Now the trail, steep, muddy, maybe a little longer than you'd like. Okay. So you're out there and you can tackle the trail. You get to the end of the trail. Now you know that you can do it because you've done it before. You thought, well, this is going to be too hard for me, but it wasn't. Now, the next time you're out there, maybe a different trail, maybe the same area, you are faced with a choice. You can take the literal easy path, Or once you start to learn that you can literally do anything, you can take the harder path. So you have this often like a literal choice when you're outside to do the thing that's slightly more challenging or not. So I went skiing with my husband a couple weeks ago. Now, first though, downhill skiing, not my jam. It scares the crap out of me. I have said on national television, proclaimed, I will never go skiing. Ha ha ha. Yeah, wah. Totally did. Okay. So why did I not like going skiing? Because it scares me. I don't want to do it. Like, I had a bad experience. Scary. So I've overcome some of that because I've learned that I can do things that I didn't think I could do because of my outside time. Then we are skiing and I'm faced with a choice. I can go down the easy slope or I can tackle this one that has scared me before and has included falling and is maybe something that pushes me way out of my comfort zone. And I am quite literally trying to decide which path I want to take. And that day I did take the harder path and I discovered that yes, I can conquer that. If I had not built this outdoor habit, I can tell you that I definitely would not have taken that other path. And I can tell you that because I have not taken the other path before. I've gone the easy way.
Side note, but I also am terrified of downhill skiing. So you're not. Yes.
Well, it's scary. That's why.
Valid. It's a valid fear. Self-preservation. Anyway, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can definitely relate to that because I would say that I indirectly built a similar habit to yours. I'm not sure if it was like as intentional or not, but like through that time period, since I have started to do that pursuit, then I found it applies to other aspects of my life other than just outdoor recreation, like things with work and kind of like pushing through adversity in situations and like just general perseverance.
Yep. Tough conversations. I cannot even tell you how many times I have had to have a conversation with somebody at work that it was going to be very uncomfortable. I don't like confrontation. I want everyone to like me, just, normal human stuff, right? But I am in charge of people. And sometimes you have to have a conversation that's uncomfortable. That's just how life goes. Oh, hey, that's true, not just at work. It's also true in your relationships. I would not sit here and draw a direct correlation between I can go down this scary hill while I'm skiing and I have the courage to have this conversation. But I actually think there is one because I was not always courageous to have the conversation, but something changed and now I am. And I gotta think it's because I'm used to tackling hard stuff. And most of that practice is outside.
And that just kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier with mindset and having that mindset shift happening.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
So we talked a little bit about going outside, even when it is maybe a little unsavory, inclement weather. Maybe it's cold, windy, rainy, whatever it may be. Or sometimes even maybe it's too hot, which can also be an issue. So I kind of want to transition a little bit into talking about how gear can both be beneficial and then maybe sometimes inhibit certain habits and mindsets. So do you think it's possible to develop an outdoor habit or lifestyle like you have without falling into that trap of needing all of the gear that helps you be comfortable?
So I think there are two sides to this. Okay. On the one hand, we know that using appropriate gear, especially in the winter when you are layering, can take your ability to go outside, even a question of safely, from no to yes, or from a punishment to a reward. Let's face it, we don't want to do things when we're uncomfortable, and ways to be uncomfortable include being cold and feeling unsafe. That's why you and I don't like skiing downhill, because it feels scary and unsafe. So I try to listen to my body when it's telling me those things and figure that out. And when it comes to cold temperatures, part of that is gear. It just is. It's layering, it's knowing how to dress, it's not necessarily the brand you own or the amount of money you spent on it so much as using what you do have properly. Okay, while keeping that in mind, on the flip side, there is a possibility that you get caught up in this idea that you have to have X, Y, and Z, or you have to get X, Y, and Z brand, or I don't have the right gear, or I don't have the right layers. Okay, so don't get caught in that trap either. So your question is, can you develop an outdoor habit without falling into the trap of needing all the gear? Absolutely. Yes, of course you can. So then, of course, the question is, how do you do that? And I think the answer is It's not so much about the right gear, because that makes it sound like consumerism or having all the gear, as it is about having the correct gear for you. And that depends on a whole bunch of things, including where you live, your body size and shape, how your circulation is, what you want to invest in or not. It could include the weather outside on any given day. I live in a very cold place, but it has a very wide range of types of weathers, and I go out in all of it. So my gear looks like layering a lot of stuff and walking around like a marshmallow. I was joking to my husband when we went on that ski trip, I had on 4 hoods. I had like 4 jackets with hoods on, because rather than own an extremely nice ski jacket, because I don't ski very often, why would I do that? I simply layered the things that I did have so that I can use them for their individual things, or I can use them for that. But I know what brand makes clothes that fits my body. I know what brands don't. And one mistake that I have personally made in the past is not knowing that, and then falling into the trap of buying stuff without understanding what it is I need.
Yeah, I really like that example that you used for skiing, because it's a testament to something that I say far too often, and it is to start with what you have. And like you're saying, you already knew that those things worked. So then why wouldn't they work in this other setting as well? But I think getting to that place, that level of self-awareness with the types of gear and knowing your needs under those conditions, perhaps is one of the larger barriers that
Absolutely.
a lot of people fall into.
Absolutely.
And then they just gravitate towards what they're sold,
right,
basically, or what they're marketed.
Right, because the outdoor industry at large and retailers individually have a high motivation to make you buy a lot of stuff. That's what they're doing. It's a business. That's how they make money, is by making you think that if you're going to go skiing, you 100% need to have this particular jacket for that. That is absolutely a thing. So knowing that that's not true takes one, knowing that that's what's about to happen to you, right? This is what they're trying to do. So are you going to fall into that or not? Okay. And the next are a series of steps: research, patience, intentionality. So you have to research what it is you particularly need for you, because every body, and I mean that like everybody's body, is different. I get very cold hands. I was also wearing 3 different types of gloves at the same time. Well, 1 glove and 2 mittens, because I know that that works for me. So I know that having warm arms and properly layering on my hands is very important. I have a condition called Raynaud's, which it looks like a circulation problem, but what it means is my hands get cold for what seems like absolutely no reason. So, they're cold right now, and I'm sitting in my house talking on a podcast. So what do you do? So I know that that happens to me, and then I dress accordingly, but I did not get there overnight. And I certainly didn't have that happen by walking into, I'm just going to pick on REI here because a lot of people have one near them, REI, and being like, sell me your most ginormous ski jacket. I knew that I need something that keeps my arm warm. I have very long arms. For example, the Patagonia brand, just because, again, that's something everyone's familiar with, their jackets have weirdly short sleeves. Someone bought me one. I cannot wear it. It's got like special embroidered with the name of their company. I feel really bad because now I have this super nice thing I can't even wear because it stops above my wrist bone for the sleeves. Okay, but I know that about me, and I know I'm not going to go out and just buy a Patagonia jacket because it's not going to fit. So that took research. And then intentionality. Again, it's that mindset of, I don't need the thing that's marketed towards me necessarily, although I'm sure in some instances that's appropriate. I can use what I already have in my closet. So I'm just going to tell you what I was wearing to ski. It was, again, my hands get very cold, so I have all the layers on top. I was wearing a long sleeve shirt that I have for running. It's just like a tech fabric. I think it's actually a Nike brand tech fabric shirt. I was wearing a pullover. It's like a waffly, like fleece almost, but not quite, from Brooks. It's actually also made for running. I do wear it to run and many other things. I got that through the resale site ThredUp. And Brooks has very long arms for my long arm friends. I was wearing a smart wool vest, which I actually have on right now while I'm talking to you. It zips up and it's just like that extra vest layer. It's very warm. And I was thinking about this morning. I think I've worn it every day this week. So I wear it for skiing. I wear it for inside. I also wear it to run. I wear it for all sorts of stuff. I think it's probably the most worn thing I own at this point, at least in the winter. And then I had on a lightweight puffy jacket that I wear for also literally everything. And then over top of that, I had on, I know, all the layers. I had on an REI like heavier weight hard shell jacket, not the fanciest. I don't actually even know what kind it is because I also got that on ThreadUp as just a resale. And that fits over. And basically I was wearing that because it made that puffy jacket waterproof or water resistant, which I didn't want to get wet because I was skiing, right? So there you go. 4 hoods, 1 shirt, all the layers. But all of those are things that I wear for other stuff. I mean, like the vest I got on right now all the time.
Yeah. And that is kind of, I think, a core for a lot of people's minimalist approaches is to find things that have multiple applications and are really useful in several different settings. And there's a lot of layers physically, and also like just hearing you talk about it, there's a lot of layers in there.
Yes.
About like kind of how you got to that point, because even like you were saying, a lot of that was second hand and maybe had those other applications like the Brooks shirt or the vest that you were wearing. You don't need to have a specific vest just for skiing and then a specific vest just for running and then another one to walk your dog and then one to have tea with your grandma. I don't know.
That would be your fanciest vest.
You're right.
In Alaska, we call that your first best vest.
Of course. But if we are kind of thinking in this realm of minimalism and trying to lessen our impact, I think that example is really relevant and awesome for gear. But how do you think that we can pursue those types of things just in our perception of adventure? Does that question make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I want to first say it's funny that it's true that that is an example of being minimalist, since I just labeled 4 hoods and other stuff in there. Okay, I'm wearing all the things at the same time. Having to wear so many things at the same time does not seem like minimalism, but it is, because we're using all of those things for multiple purposes. And because I live in a climate where all of those things do have their own individual purposes. Your next question again was what? I'm sorry, because now I forgot.
Oh, no, that's fine. But that is really true, because basically you deemed all those things necessary in that application. And I think that getting past the amount of layers you were wearing and then being like, yes, all of these are necessary, which is why I should continue to do this practice.
Right.
But my next question was, if we are looking at minimalism and outdoor recreation through that lens, then if we use the same approach that you kind of just used towards your gear and getting outside, then what are ways that we can pursue and perceive adventures in a minimalist fashion?
Yeah. So it's interesting to think about this in terms of action and like your personal actions outside of the store, right? So we perceive adventure, I don't know if this is just in America or this is today's culture by and large, as being something you go and do. It involves transportation and a plane and, a scenic vista of the Grand Canyon. I tend to pick on the Grand Canyon a lot because I think it's particularly magnificent. And I think that that kind of awe and magnificence is what we consider adventure. The Grand Canyon is without a doubt those things, but there are other types of adventures too. And many of them are in your backyard. So if you're going to live a minimalist mindset, you're going to be actively looking to reduce your carbon footprint and your footprint created by travel. There's nothing wrong with travel, but there is something minimal, not to use the word minimalist too much, but it stymies your ability to have adventures because you're thinking about them as being something you have to go to. What I'm suggesting is that your ability to use nature and to go outside and have an adventure, a minimalist mindset says that's happening in my backyard. Side note, that opens up a whole world to you personally as well. Think about all the ways that you can benefit if you open up how you think about the world around you to include nature that's outside of your doorstep. To have a daily outdoor habit, you must think about nature as being outside your doorstep, or you're never going to be able to do it because you're always going to be trying to think of ways to travel to nature. And if you add travel time on a daily outdoor habit, you're going to find that you don't have the time you wanted to have. Now, do I do my daily habit in places that are not in my backyard? Yeah, of course I do. Maybe I go down the street to a ski hill. Sometimes we go on vacation out of state. Those things happen. But by and large, my daily outdoor habit is in my own backyard or adjacent to it. It's somewhere I can walk to because that's what's most practical for me. And that's the best way that I can preserve and use the world around me is by accessing what I have where I already am. How you think about nature is directly related to how you use it. And so if you can think about nature as being outside your city apartment, outside wherever you are, that's the first step, changing that mindset.
It is the exact same concept to start with what you have. And I love that.
Yes, yes.
And I think that this was kind of a new mindset shift for me in like the last few years. I think I always also fell into that. To have a true adventure, I needed to travel somewhere, whether it's driving 3 hours or going across state lines or something. I felt like that was necessary for it to be fulfilling in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And during the pandemic, I moved back to Minnesota in the rural area where I grew up. And I realized that as I was having these, I guess I could call them micro adventures just in the area around where I was living, I was like, I grew up here and I had no idea these places even existed or were this cool.
Right. Right.
So I feel like there's a lot of new discovery that can happen, even if you've lived somewhere for years.
Absolutely.
And then you start to do this.
So I have a sub-nature habit that I'm looking forward to being able to start. I decided I am pretty gutsy and I have faced challenges, but there's a limit. Okay. And this is not the habit that I want to start in the dead of winter. Okay. So I talked to somebody for my podcast pretty recently who talks about rewilding and looking for nature in urban spaces. She suggested, her name's Claire Dunn, and she has a habit of a sit spot, which is something they talk about in the field of forest bathing. So you essentially have this area that you just go back to and you sit there. It's quite what it sounds. And you sit there for as long as you have. And all you do is observe what's around you. And the best spot is somewhere that's near you, like near where you live, so that you can go there often. So like I said, it is very cold outside. It's actually snowing right now. And I have no intention of sitting still in a snowbank until their snowbank is gone. So, but this spring, I'm really looking forward to be able to start that and to utilize nearby nature in that way, because it's going to give me a perspective on what's around me and open my eyes to that, because I'm going to be taking time to observe it. Well, as you were talking, I had this memory of my little brother while I was growing up. Now, my parents kept our yard very manicured, clipped grass, the whole 9 yards. But next door, this guy had a huge cypress tree and not a manicured yard, the opposite. And one day, my little brother he didn't go missing. He just wasn't around. So where's Bill? Where's Bill? So we find him trompsing around the neighbor's yard, highly discouraged, by the way. And he informed us that he went to look for animals in the jungle. Okay. What if we had that sort of adventure mindset for the yards or the space that is around us? Don't tromp around your neighbor's yard. They may not like that. But what if you, instead of thinking about your yard as the space you always see, opened your mind to think about it as the jungle or the park nearby? What if you thought about it that way and asked yourself, what will I discover here that I don't usually see? What will I notice that I haven't noticed before because I simply wasn't looking for it? And that is one way to take what's nearby you and really appreciate it in a way that you didn't before because you just weren't stopping to do it.
Yeah, that is a great reframing of a space that I don't want to say took for granted, but like in a sense you kind of did, because it became so familiar and then it kind of gives it a new life and a new perspective, like you were saying.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of wondering, you gave a lot of really great insights and actionable items for people if they want to start to implement these practices. But if someone is kind of listening to this and is trying to build a low impact and daily outdoor lifestyle as a new thing, like maybe they have only been doing it once a week, they'll go hiking, but they want to do it every single day, what would you want them to know? And if you just were to sit down and have coffee with them, what would you want to relay to them?
Yeah, so we've talked about a few of these things, but I'll list them again. The first thing I think is to create an outdoor habit that is something you'll actually do. So aim high, but not too high. Okay. And pick something that you can work towards attaining. So you want this to be a goal that is something that you can fit into your schedule and that you can hold yourself accountable for because it's reasonable. Like I said, for me at the time, 45 minutes a day was not reasonable. I knew once the weather got really cold, I wasn't going to want to do it. Let's start there. But that I would find excuses that I didn't have the time. I knew 20 minutes a day was something I could actually do. So that's why I picked that. Something we haven't really talked about is don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're going to start going outside every day, you're probably going to encounter weather that you had either not encountered before or perhaps just were actively avoiding, which is what I was doing. I was purposefully not going outside because I didn't feel like I wanted to be out in that. But once I did, I was encountering weather that I didn't have the experience or education to understand how to dress for comfortably. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask people around you who maybe do go outside in that kind of weather, how they dress. Here in Alaska, we have a lot of people who've lived here a long time. They've cracked the code on surviving. You don't live in Alaska a long time unless you actually like it. And they let me borrow gear to try it. They gave me advice on what kind of things to look for. They told me what kind of things to avoid, saved me a lot of unnecessary purchases by saying, those boots that you're looking at or that we just talked about, those are not the boots you want. You're going to want something that has a really good no slip on it, that keeps your feet really warm, has a lot of extra room for big socks, all of that stuff. So don't be afraid to ask for help. We also talked about expand your definition of adventure to include nearby, because if you do that, you're going to be able to make that outdoor habit happen daily because you're not trying to find new and exciting places to go all the time. You're going to be willing to find the new and exciting that's already around you by simply opening your eyes and looking for it. And finally, if you need help, if this is like way over your head, there are so many resources out there that are not just the people around you. Meg, you have this wonderful podcast. I have the Humans Outside podcast. I mentioned the Humans Outside Challenge earlier, which you can register for and receive monthly help is essentially what that is. It's me giving you advice all year round. To tackle that challenge, there are countless other websites and blogs and podcasts out there. All of these people who create these things do this because we want to encourage people to find and experience the benefits that we have also found and experienced. It's as simple as that. And so, get out there.
Yes, awesome. And I'll share links to that, like I said earlier. But if people are wanting to follow along, like more just beyond your website and all that jazz, how else can people find you and follow with the Humans Outside story?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I post a picture to Instagram every day. It started as accountability for me in my outdoor time, and now it's become a community. So that's at Humans Outside on Instagram and also on Facebook. If you want to know what life in Alaska looks like, or me, alternatively, me skiing a lot in the winter time, mostly not downhill, by the way, cross country. That's a lot of what I do in the winter because when you're trying to stay warm, moving is helpful. So there's that. So Humans Outside on Facebook and Instagram. Of course, you can go to humansoutside.com where I have links to the podcast and the challenge. And then the Humans Outside podcast is on all the normal podcast places, which are way too many to list.
Anywhere that you usually listen to podcasts.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Amy. I always love talking to you. And right after this, I do plan to go outside.
Excellent. Same.
Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. New content has begun to appear on the Outdoor Minimalist Patreon. Head over to theoutdoorminimalist.com for more information about our listener support and patron exclusives. You can still find me on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book. Follow there for daily updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with a shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.